Cancer mRNA vaccines. Who's going to pay for them? Brief overview of cancer.
And basically what cancer is a redirect of cellular growth mechanisms in your cells to attract healthy cells to help the tumor grow and get the resources that it needs. And a lot of the times mutations and environmental agents play key roles in tumors growing. Cancer is also the second leading cause of death in the United States and around the world as well. And this is because it causes underlying health issues that can lead to an inability for treatment and supportive care to help you fight off that cancer. And this all depends on what stage you're in as well, 0 being the least concerning and 4 being like considered end stage and super concerning for your health and your immune system. And it is so hard to detect cancer for multiple reasons. A main one being these cancer cells can send signals that copy healthy cell signals. They also shut down the immune cells that are tracking them and use them to keep growing rapidly. And lastly, they exhaust the nervous system with large numbers and rapid growth. So they actually kind of have some treatments. So past treatments were mainly surgical up until the 1990s. And then after that, with more research and more scientists looking for different ways to not just physically, but chemically help treat cancer, they found immunotherapy, chemotherapy, radiation, target therapy. Now, why are current cancer treatments not efficacious enough? There are drug resistance. There is a lack of genetic profiling. There is just the issue with cancer diagnosis is hard in general. And there is the main issue of metastasis, which is the cancer spreading throughout your body to vital organs and important parts of your body that can't always fight it off as easy. A lack of specificity in treatments now has caused a decrease in providing long-lasting protection against cancer. A lot of the times cancers will grow back more aggressively in different spots.
Now that we've looked at the past and current cancer treatments, let's look to the future. Vaccines.
Although there have been many mRNA cancer vaccines to enter clinical trials with varying results, let's walk through 2 promising vaccines currently in clinical trials that have been given at least Fast Track designation. Moderna and Merck had a phase 2 trial that was completed for patients with resected melanoma to see if their mRNA vaccine, in combination with Keytruda, would have better results compared to just treatment with Keytruda, an immunotherapy for cancer. The combination treatment, so both the mRNA vaccine and Keytruda, displayed a statistically significant and clinically meaningful improvement in the 18-month recurrence-free survival rate. Additionally, the combination treatment displayed a 44% reduction in the recurrence or death rate. BioNTech also has a melanoma vaccine that recently underwent phase 1 clinical trial and has been given FDA Fast Track designation. In the trial, the vaccine displayed a favorable safety profile and patients showed a strong immune response, since there was good CD4 and CD8 T-cell immunity against the vaccine antigens, and there were strong antigen-specific cytotoxic T-cell responses that were comparable to other immunotherapies. Like other mRNA vaccines, the goal of cancer mRNA vaccines is to induce or boost an immune response. The key step that distinguishes mRNA cancer vaccines from other mRNA vaccines is antigen selection prior to vaccine production. Antigen selection has 3 main options: TSAs, which appear only on tumor cells and thus restrict damage to healthy cells, allowing great specificity compared to standard cancer treatments and thus providing less toxicity but better efficacy. Also TAAs, which are proteins expressed by both cancer and normal cells, but are overexpressed on cancer cells relative to normal cells. Finally, there are immune regulating factors. In this case, rather than encoding an antigen, the mRNA encodes proteins that enhance or inhibit certain immune cell functions. After the antigen that the mRNA encodes has been selected, the cancer mRNA vaccine mechanism is very similar to that of other mRNA vaccines.
Does this mechanism look familiar? Well, it probably does. This is the same technology used for the COVID-19 vaccines. As you can see, an mRNA strand coding for the viral spike protein of the SARS-CoV-2 virus is injected into a patient, where then the mRNA strand makes its way into the cell's ribosome, where the strand is translated into the viral protein, and then this protein is moved out of the cell and expressed on the cell's outer receptors. From here, the immune system can recognize this foreign protein on the outside of the cell and mass produce antibodies against it. Additionally, the immune system searches for cells infected with this virus and also produces memory cells to remember how to fight the virus if it were to appear in the body again in the future. Currently, 2 mRNA COVID-19 vaccines, one produced by Pfizer and the other Moderna, are on the market today. These vaccines contain mRNA strands that code for the same viral spike protein.
The government funded the development of mRNA COVID-19 vaccine. According to the National Library of Medicine, the United States government allocated at least $31.9 billion in public fund direct into the development, production, and purchasing of mRNA for COVID-19 vaccine. Overall, the government's substantial investment in COVID-19 mRNA vaccine research and procurement underscore the critical role of public funding in addressing global health agencies.
Breaking this funding down, less than 1% of the fund was spent on manufacturing the vaccines, around 7% was spent on funding its clinical trials, and a majority of the government funding was spent on purchasing the vaccines.
It is important to note that the federal government funded mRNA-related science before the pandemic, with $337 million in direct investments and an estimated $5.9 billion in indirect investments.
If the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines were fully funded and its individual doses were fully paid for by the U.S. government, should the same be done with the future cancer mRNA vaccines?
First, it's important to look at what constitutes government funding for healthcare. As outlined in the Constitution's preamble, one of the reasons the U.S. federal government exists is to promote the general welfare of the people. Today, precedents have dictated that that means providing high-quality healthcare through supplemental funding when there is a gap or inefficiency in the market. This can include helping patients cover medical bills, giving more incentives for manufacturers to research cheaper and more efficient means of production, or regulating monopolies. As mentioned before, COVID's contagiousness and threat to the general public encouraged the government to spend billions of dollars funding research and testing for the vaccine, and then paying for the doses so that everyone can have easy and free access. But
cancer is not contagious. Cancer is linked from person to person through genes. It cannot be spread by contact or through the air from someone who has cancer. In the same way that our body's immune systems recognize and destroy foreign material found in the body, it does the same to foreign cancer cells. There are sometimes rare cases of cancer resulting from either viral, bacterial, or parasitic infections. Most cases of cancer resulting from viral infections happen because viruses insert their genetic material into the host cell's DNA, which can affect cell growth. Cancer can result from bacterial infections through the activation of long-term inflammation. Lastly, parasitic worms can cause cancer in the gastrointestinal and urinary tracts in undeveloped countries.
since cancer is not contagious, it is not a national threat like COVID, and therefore does not dictate a similar governmental response. Rather, cancer therapeutics should be approached as a patient's individual treatment and must be paid for by the patient. However, as this technology has the potential to save thousands of lives, the government should fund the research and development of the vaccines and better manufacturing processes.
The long-term benefit of preventing cancer through vaccination justify the upfront investments required.
So where does this lead us? Cancer is a prevalent and deadly disease. Treatments up to this point have been largely invasive and painful, but mRNA vaccine technology appears to be a potential light at the end of a long, dark, hard-fought tunnel in the fight against cancer. However, even if the vaccines prove effective, there is still an issue of cost. Although the technology is similar to that of the COVID-19 vaccine, we believe the government should not be responsible for covering the costs of treatment. Instead, we suggest supplemental funding towards researching, working towards decreasing costs and improving the vaccine. Perhaps with brilliant minds and government funding, we can finally beat cancer.